Grafton. Welcome to the November 19th, 2024 meeting of the Grafton School Committee. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to general business. The first item under general business is a social emotional learning update from Roseanne Karposka. Welcome back, Roseanne.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me so that I may present on everything that's happening in our district on social emotional learning. And I'd like to begin by just pointing out that 2 out of our 4 goals in the strategic plan related to social emotional learning, well-being, and connection, which is important. And it's nice to be in a district that treats it so highly as important. So well-being, fostering a safe and caring environment that allows all students and staff to thrive. Connection, promoting strong and positive interpersonal connections between all stakeholders. So everything that we'll talk about is connected to those 2 goals. This is just a quick slide on what is social and emotional learning from the CASEL Signature Practices Playbook. And the benefits of SEL most definitely improve academic achievement when we focus on it. And fortunately, all of our schools are focusing on SEL in a number of different ways. The Department of Education and CASEL are supporting emotional learning together in their collaboration on 5 competencies. So the 5 core competencies that we focus on are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And we also tie in social emotional learning to our multi-tiered system of support. So we have different Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 services that support students at all levels, universal across the board, students that are at risk and students that are high risk, so that we're ensuring that we're hitting the needs of all students at all different levels. And in order for you to have school-wide SEL, it has to meet these 10 indicators. And as we go through, you'll see that what we're doing throughout our district is in fact meeting these 10 indicators. So it's not simply just the explicit instruction. It's so much more than that. So I'm also co-chairing the Grafton Wellness Advisory Committee with Deb Goodwill, the assistant principal at the high school. And I'd like to thank Rebecca for being on the Wellness Advisory Committee. And we are doing a lot of work connected to the district-wide social emotional learning through this organization. So membership includes our staff, students, parents, school committee rep, and Worcester DPH, Department of Public Health representatives. Depending on what we're talking about, different reps from the Worcester DPH show up. We review the Regional Youth Health Survey results, and we make decisions based on that. And we have been taking advantage of what's called the Mass Call 3B grant, which is focused on enabling us to do the work that we need to do with social emotional learning in order to promote solid mental health as students grow into adulthood, and also to reduce substance use as well. And we're going to be focusing on this year the implementation of the HOPE program, which is sponsored by Tufts Medical Center in Boston. And the Worcester DPH is connecting with us and helping us through this process so that we utilize the grant funding and we engage in a number of programs. So we're in the midst of that now. So the HOPE program, I'm hoping you have a copy, a link to this presentation, because there will be links throughout. But I'm going to run through this fairly quickly. But HOPE stands for Healthy Outcome from Positive Experiences. And what it's basically showing is that research shows that positive childhood experiences, PCEs, so that's something we're going to get used to, PCEs, thinking about driving healthy development, lessening the effects of adverse childhood experiences or negative childhood experiences. So PCEs can actually change the impact, alter the impact of adverse childhood experiences to promote better mental health. This is what they use as the scale questions to determine whether somebody has had positive childhood experiences. So there's lots of studies that have been done, and the results are that the higher number of PCEs are in fact associated with lower substance use, and that it protects mental health. So for example, you have 0 to 2 PCEs. As an adult, they'll have 51% good of the population would have good mental health. 6 to 7 PCEs, 87% good mental health of the people that were studied. Higher PCEs protect overall health, lower rates of depression, heart disease, improved physical health, more likely to be employed. So many good things. So the ACEs, I threw the slide in just so that you could see what the adverse childhood experiences are: abuse, neglect, household challenges, but also other adversity like bullying, community violence, natural disasters. So those would be the ACEs. And the good news is the PCEs reduce the effects of ACEs. So the more PCEs, the lower percentage with depression or poor mental health. Research indicates that the absence of PCEs may be more damaging to long-term health outcomes than the presence of ACEs. Strong. So just quickly, there are 4 building blocks of HOPE. This HOPE program: relationships, engagement, environment, and emotional growth. So just quickly, stable, nurturing relationships, safe, equitable, stable environments, social and civic engagement, and emotional growth. The HOPE program, we've already been through the readiness part of this program, and we already spent that money on the Power of Moments. We have book study that's going on throughout our district with staff. And it is literally, it's just crazy how it came across this book. Stephen Wiltshire actually showed it to me. But it's about how to create powerful moments deliberately in our lives, and in the lives of our children at school, but also in the lives of our loved ones at home. And then, so I ended up, I was able to purchase 120 books, and we have about 80 people that are in book studies throughout the district. But I'm offering the books to people that want them. And I gave each one of you a book, so hopefully you'll take a look at some point. We also purchased the Zones of Regulation. There's a new digital curriculum that came out in 2024. So now all the individuals that teach the zones have access to that up through 6th grade. And then we have scheduled visits, and we're bringing in comfort therapy dogs in every school, and we've had a few visits already, and it's amazing. We also have our PTG at North Grafton is supporting us, and they're giving us the funding to bring a dog into every classroom, which is more than what I could do with the grant. So I'm very grateful to them. That'll be really nice. And now we're in the HOPE. So now we're in the implementation phase, and I did share with you the draft plan that I shared with the Worcester Department of Public Health so that you could take a look and see some of the things that we're doing. We're actually going to be doing more trainings on the HOPE program, and also we're going to put on a facilitator train the trainer program so that we have people embedded throughout our district that are able to teach others about the HOPE program and creating positive childhood experiences deliberately. So zones of regulation, look, if you have children in the schools, you recognize this one, probably. Comfort therapy dog visits. I wanted to post a whole bunch of pictures with the kids, but I didn't think that was appropriate, so there's Beth Hubbard, school psychologist. We learn in a state of positive emotion much more effectively than we can learn in a state of negative emotion. That has huge implications for what we do in schools. So I also created some slides for all the social, like as many social emotional practices as we could really think of at the time, and there's a lot. So these are the practices that are across the school. I'm not going to read through all of them. And we got our pre-K grade 1 level. And we start the second step program at, here, and the pre-K level, and then it runs through 8th grade, which is our more explicit teaching of social emotional learning. But there's so much more embedded social emotional learning within our schools. And then grades 2 through 6, we've got second step, but we have a very robust SEL pacing guide that includes a lot of PBIS activities. SEL at the middle school as well. We have a new health curriculum through the state. Wonderful enrichment clubs, activities. A Lighthouse program. Student support teams run through every school. And SEL at the high school as well. It just keeps building, which is wonderful. In addition to that, we have community partnerships, a number of them, and I just pointed out a few here, but there are so many more. And a focus on adult SEL, so a lot of the focus is in fact on the children, but we do need to make sure that our staff is in a good place too. So the Power of Moment book study, we create an SEL monthly newsletter and send it out to the entire staff, and that includes ideas for how to work with students, but also how to care for oneself. And a lot of after-school staff events, collaboration, where we're a little more focused on it right now, trying to be deliberate. Our PTGs are just outstanding at the lower grade levels. I can't say enough. I can't even believe it after having been at the middle school for so long, and then go to the elementary school and see what they do. It's incredible. And we do recognize our staff for life-changing events, whether they're positive or negative, through the Sunshine Starlight Funds. And then we have employee assistance programs and other mental health supports provided through our healthcare providers. Steve Wiltshire and Julie Flynn are running the Anxious Generation book study with some parents, and I think they have between 20 and 25 parents show up per meeting, which is nice as well. And our next steps. The plan that I shared with you is really the next steps. It's the program implementation, which includes the HOPE facilitator training, increasing PCEs across the district, introducing PSAs and other communication regarding PCE stories, how to deliberately create them, and the Worcester Department of Health has offered to print materials for us so that for distribution to the community. I'd love to hold a parent guardian night to introduce them once we're trained on how to teach others about the program. So there's a lot to come this year, and resources. Do you have any questions? Yes.
I was wondering, are we seeing any less in the needs of social emotional issues with kids in grades 1 through 4 than we had in years past, where those kids weren't affected by COVID during their educational careers?
I don't have any data right in front of me, but I would say that we are, I think we're increasing our awareness of those needs. And I do believe that there is a great deal of need with children for social emotional needs. So I can assure you that the school psychologists and adjustment counselors are very busy working with their principals.
Yeah.
Other questions from the committee? I had one. First of all, this is all fantastic. I can't believe how far we've come on this issue in such a short amount of time. And I know you've been a big part of that. I know there was much work that happened before you started this position, but you've really ramped it up. The only question I have is how much are we communicating to parents? Because I personally feel that it is very important for parents to be aware, first of what SEL is, what it's not, what we're doing. And I know that's a tough sell because with everything you have going on, I know it's hard to sit down and write those emails or, how are we communicating this to parents? Are we communicating it to parents on a regular basis?
Yeah, we are doing some, but we're not doing enough yet.
Okay.
So that's a piece that I feel like we need that's next steps. And I'm embarrassed to say I said the same
No.
thing at the end of last year, but it is the next step. We did put something in the district
In the
newsletter.
last newsletter.
Yep.
We're going to ramp that up. I think, just to echo what you said, Amy, Rosanna's just been killing it. So it's not a matter of
Yeah.
when we used to not have everything together and couldn't communicate it. Now we have it together, and it's more on us, I think, than Roseanne to take that next step community-wide.
I just feel like, maybe it's the principal newsletters are probably very well read, now that they're going, the principal newsletters, like at least once a month, something about SEL. Because there's so much misinformation about what it is and what it's not. And I think parents need to understand what it is and what that means to their kids. So they can look for these changes in behaviors. And sometimes they'll reach out and say, how can I help? And that's what we really want, because if we're just doing this in the schools and the kids aren't being supported at home, what is that going to look like in 10 years, right? I'm preaching to the choir at this point, but
You are.
I
But that
just
is-
want to
that
make
is
sure we
why
engage families.
I definitely want to hold a parent, we are doing, by the way, a family community wellness night on January 15th.
Oh, cool.
So,
Pre-K through 6, which is, I know you're interested in more engagement with those pre-K through 6 parents too, so.
yes,
Throwing that
and
out
we
there.
actually have, I want to say for the first time, we have pre-K through 6 representation on the Grafton Wellness Advisory Committee as well. Usually it's high school, sometimes middle school, but now it encompasses all grades, which is really nice.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Roseanne. This is fantastic work. I'm really grateful for you and your team. I've said this a couple times over the years. My hope is eventually, and I feel like we're getting there, is that SEL won't be that extra thing. It's just embedded in everything that we do. And I feel like we're really getting close to that, where it almost needs to be called out. Like, oh, we're doing SEL. Like, that's who we are as a district. And I love seeing this training the trainer and seeing that we have community members in there, like Girl Scout leaders or Boy Scout leaders, coaches, family members. Like, I think that's phenomenal. So that kind of echoes kind of what Amy was asking, is it seems like you are making efforts to train the trainers. My question is, we've been at it a little bit. I feel like our students are under more outside stresses than ever. I'm wondering what we've seen, since there have been now some students that have moved through, and not as in depth, but SEL's been in the district a while. Are we seeing some positive changes when they get up through that kind of middle and high school, where we're seeing kind of positive outcomes? Have you been able to measure that yet, or is it too hard to measure?
Well, what we have been able to measure is through the regional youth health surveys.
Yep.
And that, we can tell you that, vaping, for example, has decreased to a pretty decent level. It's actually, 8%, and it's repeated people. So that's pretty good. It was at a much higher rate a few years ago. But what is actually increased and what's at the top of the list is stress and anxiety.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
100%.
so I'd like to say, oh yeah, we're seeing the results. I can tell you that at North Street, as I see that students from, grades 2 through 6, the idea of the zones and using them and talking about them is something that becomes embedded in them, which is fantastic. And they remember that, or expected behaviors, they remember that. So I do think we're making some progress. We also have, if you remember, Navigate 360, the online platform, and there are hundreds of little lessons that you can give to students at all the different grade levels. And so our schools are utilizing those as well, to move away from the more punitive discipline that we know does not change behavior, and now we're using more restorative practices as well.
Yeah.
Which I didn't include in that, but I think that the kids now realize, like, I have students that will say, I had this conflict with somebody, I really need to just talk, can we do this together? And I hold a mediation, and they're asking for it now. So I see that kind of progress. I'm not sure at the high school, if you have the mediations and,
I kind of remember stuff like that maybe happening in middle school more, but I think it's really sweet that the kids are asking for that, and they're recognizing that just because they have a conflict with someone doesn't mean they can't work it out, and it like doesn't mean the other person's a bad person.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, I think, and thank you, I think that you put that slide up about how those negative experiences impact, I forgot what the exact words are, but they impact you more. And we talk about that a lot, how when you can't learn, when your anxiety comes up, I've spoken about that in meetings here, when I get, I can't listen, I can't function. So I think it's so important for students to be able to start to recognize, hey, I'm feeling really anxious right now. Let me take that moment, either, take that, breathe, recognizing that, and that it's okay to feel those feelings. So this is what I love that they're getting this from pre-K on, because maybe by the time they're sitting in an uncomfortable meeting at work or something, they're able to regulate how they're feeling, or take those moments and know that it's okay to take those moments. So,
Completely agree.
Awesome, yeah.
Most classrooms at the 2 through 6 level have what's called a calm corner. They call it different things, the Zen zone, whatever it may be called. But they actually have it up on the walls. They have materials there, different breathing exercises. So it's just embedded and students are learning. And I just want to point out one last thing, is that in our new ELA program, the EL education program, there is an SEL component completely embedded within the program. It's called CREW, and it's a part of the program. So it's integrated right into the literature. So when you talk about it just becoming a way of life, it is through that program
excellent.
as well.
Yeah.
Tink you so much
Thank you, Roseanne.
Thank
for
you,
having
Roseanne.
me.
Roseanne.
Phenomenal.
Okay, next up, we have an operations update and budget. It's gonna be Jay and Frank, or just Frank?
Unless you want to. Thank you, Roseanne.
Welcome, Frank. My laptop inexplicably logged me out, so I'm trying to get back in.
You
Apparently.
need anything?
I just need to get back in my laptop. There we go. I tried to switch tabs and it said, you're not logged in. Sorry.
Maybe not the worst, but in a meeting.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Frank.
Hey.
I don't know if we do paper, but I'm going to do an update of like sort of operations, but I was just here recently, so I don't have a lot of super new information to share with you on that. But then I'm going to go right into capital, so I don't know if you did print, if you could maybe, well, there's 2 on each page. The capital plan 2026, 2030. Or maybe pull that up. Keep this portico in mind. I'll reference this a little bit later.
All right. We're gonna play a game, name that school.
So there again is our operations, sort of what we're responsible in operations. The operations department, administratively anyway, is myself as the director, and Shauna Carlson is the assistant director. And our offices are up here in central office. One of the things we did late last year, is come up with a mission statement and create some core values. And on each slide, I'm just going to try to point out maybe one thing, and if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me. So our emphasis, of course, is on trying to create to do our work in a healthy, safe, sustainable, and responsible manner. And that's everything from not only how we do our work and being conscientious of our work, but also when we're done, how do we dispose of whatever it is we replaced, fixed, whatever. So we probably do, after doing it for a year last year, like 3 times in the school year, we'll do fluorescent bulbs, lithium batteries, refrigerators, air conditioners that are, we bring those and dispose of those properly. So, our core values, the one that I would want to point out, just so I can get through my presentation in a timely manner, is we're committed to finding solutions that allow teachers to teach and students to learn in environments that are clean, safe, comfortable, and functional. And to summarize our core values, we like things to work as they were intended to work, and we like them to look nice. So we've been really spending quite a bit of time on trying to make sure everything's repaired and fixed. I think in our last meeting, I had mentioned that we were pretty close to getting all the cracked windows in the district fixed and have blinds or shades that work on every window. It sounds like such a small thing, but when you're a teacher and that, the shade doesn't work, it's just an annoyance that you could do without. Some general updates. Again, I was just here, I think 6 weeks ago or so. But one thing that I would want to point out is that in the last year, we've hired 4 new maintenance staff. This has allowed us to rethink the deployment of our maintenance team, which is presently 5 members. For instance, this fall, we've been able to dedicate 2 employees to landscaping and maintenance of our athletic fields and the grounds of all the different buildings. And I hope you all have noticed a difference. Leaf removal was pretty much done once in each building, and we've been after it now. Like the high school, we're there every 4 days or so, just to try to make sure the grounds look nice. Our spring plan, as a result of that work, again, when you have 2 dedicated people that are really focused on landscaping, our spring plan is already taking shape so that we know how to address things when the weather turns back away from snow. And then big project updates over the last 2 years, some big things that we've done. I've listed here. There's 3 I just wanted to point out about halfway down. Big ones that I think people will probably want to know some information on. The air conditioning is on schedule to be fully functional in the spring at GMS. There were some hurdles that had to be overcome with the state. There's been a lot of hurdles, but the state and the building inspector and Train, our vendor, worked out those hurdles. So those have been jumped over, and some work needs to be done between now and the spring, and I'm 98% confident that that will happen. So
Thank
we're
you
doing
for
our
being
best.
honest, Frank.
Yeah. I hate overpromising and under-delivering,
That's right.
but we're trying our best. 3 up from the bottom. In my last meeting here with the school committee, someone had asked me about accessibility of the playgrounds. We have identified some ARPA funds, and we're going to try, the weather is going to turn soon, but we're going to try to get some all-access pathways to the playgrounds at North Street and North Grafton. So there's a swing set. There's 2 swing sets at North Grafton, and that's sort of on a gradual incline, and it's away from the blacktop. So we want to pave a path there, which may need to switchback, which is a skiing term, right? Everyone knows what a switchback is. So it may need to switch back because we had to look this up, and of course, anyone putting in such a path would know this. The vendors that we're currently trying to get quotes from, I believe it's 8 degrees is the angle. It can't be more steep than 8 degrees. North Grafton's easy compared to North Street, which has 3 tiered playgrounds. It used to sort of be one big blobby playground, but we've put in some dividers to keep the mulch in place so it doesn't all wash into the woods, and that came out really nice. But now we're trying to get it so that all children can access the middle tier and the lower tier of those playgrounds because they presently cannot. And then I think I mentioned in my last visit with you all that we put in mats at North Grafton and Millbury Street on the mulch that has allowed, and the teachers have reported that they're really happy with them. So, and then lastly, the North Street roofing project. Just a quick update on that is the exterior was more damaged than we anticipated, so that will all have to be stripped. And I had reached out to architects to get 3 quotes. Those came in, and we chose an architect, and I should have architectural plans in about 3 weeks, and then I'll put that out to bid to contractors, to do the exterior. The insurance company is handling the interior, and we already have a roof contractor that we put out to bid. Okay? So I want to, this is where you can start looking at page 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and stop me if you want to speak to something that I'm only picking out a few things. The ask for capital projects for next year is 1.2 million, and I ask for that number, fully understanding if we don't get 1.2 million, then we just kick the can down the road, and we move something like that to the next year, and hope that we can get funding for it for the next year. So one of the things in previous capital project requests, was PA systems, and the estimated amount for those PA systems to be replaced in each of the schools was somewhere between $30,000 to $50,000, and we went out and got actual estimates. I worked in tandem with the tech department to do that work with Maureen, and the estimates that we got were way higher than that. So we have estimates over $100,000 to change out the PA systems in the schools. So we were able to find funding for the middle school this year, which is in progress. And next year we're asking, for North Street. If you drop down 3 bullets, new student activity vehicle for GAIN, clubs and activities and field trips. We have a 2008 Ford E350 that has not run for about 3 or 4 years. It was registered as a school bus. None of the school buses are tricky. There's a lot of rules with school buses. We've had Rands Automotive go through the vehicle. It's in tip-top shape for a very old vehicle, and we eliminated it being a school bus and made it a municipal vehicle because we don't need it as a school bus. A school bus, by definition, runs the same route every day. We need it for like a variety of things. So that's back on the road, and like our bowling team's going to use it, and field trips. It's got a handicap, a wheelchair accessible ramp that is really useful. We need another one of those vehicles because that vehicle is, we brought that thing back to life, and we need another one moving forward. The stadium lights, if you look at the pictures in that packet, the stadium lights are damaged. We were able to get them functioning and working, but the wiring is frayed, and they're not going to last very much longer. And frankly, they use a tremendous amount of electricity, and when they go on the fritz, you have to shut them down, wait 15 minutes, turn them on. It takes another 15 minutes for them all to come on. And LED would give us a lot more control, including we could have like one of the LEDs on at night for security, and as well as walkers on the track could just use it late into the night. Yep.
So, couple things on that. One, have you had a chance to look for any sort of grants for that? But also, because converting to LED, I'm sure you're aware, there's a lot of programs out there for that sort of thing. But also, I decided to take a look through the state's database of community preservation projects.
Mm-hmm.
They do fund this type of thing. So that's another funding source that we could make use of. We could apply to the capital, not capital,
Anything you find, I'm happy to look at.
Community Preservation Committee, CPC.
I worked with an electrical wholesaler and who's very savvy when it comes to understanding Mass Save. And Mass Save is very much interested in giving rebates for things like gym lights or hallway lights that are on all day long. But when you put something on just for an activity and then shut it off, they're not very interested in giving big rebates, even though they're much more expensive for stadium lights, right?
What if we just left them on, Frank?
Well, so yes, there are a few rebates for that, but not a tremendous amount. And the quote that I put in there was with rebates, just so you know. Yeah, that comes with the rebates.
Well, that would probably look good on a CPC application, though.
Yeah, we can try.
What's that?
Not that I can talk to you about the CPC.
I'm happy to help.
Okay. GMS is going to need a new fire panel because our new ducting this is one of the things that was delay for the air conditioning. The new ducting has duct smokes in there that are supposed to, by code, I learned a lot about the HVAC code, show in the panel that there's trouble if that gets like, if it's dusty in there or triggers because of smoke, it'll show as a trouble in the panel and not an alarm. But our present panel, which is very dated, and our present devices throughout the building, also dated, do not allow for that capability. So the agreement that we made with the state was we would do it as an alarm, which we're a little worried about false alarms in the spring. But it'll be cool when they get back in the building. That's a little joke, sorry. No one's laughing. But we have to change the panel. The fire department's gonna give us a year to change the panel. So that's gonna be mandated by the fire department, that we have to change that panel. The price that we put in there was based on work that we did this past summer at Millbury Street for just the panel, as well as work we did at North Grafton where they changed everything. Okay. We just sort of learned that about a month ago, so we have to put that out to bid, obviously. And then there's things that you don't anticipate, such as the last two. The water heater is leaking at South Grafton. That needs to be replaced. That's a big hunk of water heater that needs to be cut up and removed and then replaced. And then the smoke detectors at South Grafton, they're carbon. It's the only school that has it, maybe in Massachusetts. For some reason, they were put in as carbon monoxide / smoke detectors. They only have a 5-year lifespan, and they're all at end of life, like now. So they still function, but they show as that they're not in trouble, but they show as end of life. So I've worked with the company that installed them, and they said that they're fine. And we had one that died, and we replaced it, but we need to replace all of them next year.
Frank, is it possible to switch them to something less problematic? Or do we have to kind of go with what we have?
Yeah, I'm trying to get, I have to work with the fire department. When we do our walkthrough, which should be in about a month or within the next month, I'm gonna bring that up. That now, from the fire department's perspective, they've been asking for schools to all go to carbon monoxide / smoke detectors, but the code says smoke detector. Again, I'm becoming very savvy with those big fat code books. I've learned how to use them, and yes, and the new ones, by the way, are 10-year lifespan.
Okay.
These were only 5, and we didn't know that they were installed 5 years ago. Anything else on 25, 26? Yes.
I have a question that's more just logistical, but so you have to cut up the water tank to get it out?
Yeah, it's big.
How are you gonna fit a new one in?
Oh,
They're small.
they're much
But
smaller.
they're smaller? Okay, I was like, but, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know
Cool.
when this thing was built.
That's exciting. I just was like, are
So
we gonna have to
funny-
weld it together in the basement? It's gonna be so exciting.
They're-
Cool.
They're ancient, but it was also built when we had functional locker rooms way back.
And using tons and tons of,
Yeah.
got it.
So, for instance, the water heater at Millbury Street also went out, and we were able to replace that with that was huge. Similar, they could wheel that. Well, they couldn't wheel it because it rolled the wrong way. It rolled the long way.
Perfect.
So you needed to
Yeah,
drag
oh,
it,
got it.
the other way. And they replaced it with 2. Still very like I still thought it was too big for that school, but 2 smaller ones.
Okay.
It's less capacity.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Anything else? That's a great question, though. I didn't even think of that.
I had a question on something that's not included in this. In the science wing of the high school, I know there's like an issue with the heating. I don't know a lot about it, but I just had a question if there's any updates on that.
Yeah. So there's controllers in the unit. I guess that's been not functioning for many years, according to Mr. Cody, back to when he was a science teacher. And we've troubleshot that with a vendor that we use. And the parts are very hard to come by. And we tried to get it done more quickly with a not the original part, but like an off-brand part, and it's not going to work because it's all electronic and it works with our controller system. So it's like 6 to 8 weeks that we're waiting, but they've been ordered.
Okay,
So
awesome.
hopefully they come in, and I know the airflow is pretty low in there, so, I mean, I stole some box fans from the middle school, but that's the best I could do.
What rooms is it? Is it, because I know it's in my science classroom, but
It's that whole little wing, I think, that there's like 4 rooms in a row.
on the window?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so like basically all the like biology teachers, I think.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big expense, but we're gonna take that out of our regular budget to
Okay,
pay for that.
awesome. Great, thank you.
So, thanks. Great question. Okay, anything else on 25, 26?
Oh,
I just,
Oh.
sorry, I know, I just could have saved this for, I just wanted to thank you, for, keeping the faith, and even though you didn't, with the, train project, and I know you didn't.
Nothing stops a train.
Nothing stops a train. You didn't start the fire, but you are there to help. Keep
Did
it
you
going.
just make a Billy Joel reference? That's awesome.
Maybe.
Oh, you
That's
may
great.
be right, I may be
Oh
crazy.
my gosh.
Okay. Let's rein it back in, ladies.
Let's bring it back. 26, 27, project requests. This is 1.7 million. The big expense, of course, is 700,000 to replace the turf field. I showed that one picture. We pay, I wish I had the number at my fingertips, a company to come in and do their very best to re-glue all those seams. It's hamburger. I don't know if you have, if your children, any of your children play on the field, but it's really good at the beginning of the football season, at the end of the football, soccer, not lacrosse, but the fall season. We do it in the summer. By the spring, it's pretty chopped up. And we have, again, those 2 landscapers, they're like on it. They've watched YouTube videos. They want to make sure that field is pristine, and they roll it, and they're adding, I call them BBs, the pellets, those rubber pellets that you guys track all over the creation. But it's being maintained to the best capability. But because of its age, the biggest problem is there's no cushion. You're supposed to, you drop like not quite a shot put, a smaller shot put, and there's like a measuring stick that you measure how much it bounces. It hardly bounces at all. So for safety and the fact that it's all torn up, it needs to be replaced. And I'm happy to talk about anything else on there. The various ADA improvements, that was a report that was done, I don't know, 2 years ago. I have the report. There's a laundry list of things. And we're just looking to continue to chip away at making our buildings and student experiences more accessible to all.
Well, this is kind of a discussion. I promise I won't make a Billy Joel joke. For the turf fields, you have it recommended coming out of capital improvement, so possibly that could be done, I guess, by capital improvement. I wonder if it would also be like that we would have to bond it, and I'm wondering if we would maybe want to see if we get this rolled into the override request, because we have to when is number 2 coming up?
The following.
The fall.
Following year.
I mean, frankly,
I don't know if that's something
number
we-
1 could be this summer, but I just tried to
Yeah.
spread it out a
I'm
little
just
bit.
wondering, like, just putting it out there, that maybe that's something we bring up to somebody. I know it's not operational, but, they're big, hefty costs, and they have to be done.
Yeah, it's those
I
2,
don't
and
know.
Frank's going to get to it, but townwide roofs are
Right.
going to have to be done. Those are things that we put it on capital, but it's
Right.
been off capital, and we've been saying it needs to be separate, but
I mean, I know our overrides
going
are,
into
we
year
haven't even come
14.
down to a number or years or anything yet, and we're still early, but I don't know. It just seems like,
No, it's a
because that's
big
something
issue.
I feel like we might have to come back with, like, and I don't know. Thank you.
Quick question. You talk about the turf fields. What's the condition of the tennis courts? How are those? Are they good? Any cracks in the courts?
I think they're in good shape.
Because usually they only last like 10 years, a tennis court, before you have to start.
I've not heard one complaint about the tennis courts. I'm actually, I don't even want to say this this is a public meeting. I'm shocked that there has not been requests and demands to turn them into pickleball. like every community I know of in Massachusetts, except for Grafton. Like, I guess there are demands to the park department for
Yeah.
pickleball courts in the town, but no one has come to us.
I think we have some at Ferry Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, Fisher Park on Ferry Street has been converted. So there are pickleball courts in Grafton, but yeah, there's always demand for it.
People are playing tennis there a lot,
Yeah, no,
which
they-
is
no,
great.
it's
I love
used
it.
quite often.
I love it.
And I know there are kids who use those courts to play pickleball too. It's not, I mean, you can do it, you can make it work. It's
Right.
not the easiest, but I mean, it's like playing baseball in a softball field.
And
that too.
I'd also add that I feel that they're respected in that I don't see kids doing wheelies on there. Like, you know what I mean? It's like tennis on the tennis courts, basketball on the basketball courts, which is great. And then 27, 28, there's the concrete and brickwork at North Street needs some love. We have 2 utility plow trucks that are, I'm in the process of trying to donate them to the fire department so they can tear them apart because the frames are rotted in them. So we have to replace 2 trucks. This is the second one. One we're buying this year with our regular money. And then there's turf field too for another 700,000 estimate.
I'm sorry, Frank, what's the total for the 2 turf fields? 700
Uh,
for both?
I think I asked for 2 quotes. I've received 2 quotes, and those aren't even formal.
Right.
I've asked for purposes of this, a meeting like this. I don't want to give you silly numbers. I want to give you as accurate as possible. And one was 700 and one was 750.
Okay, so that's, I mean, it's still significantly lower than it was. I would want to say 4 years ago, the quotes were coming in at $1 million or more. So that has at least come down, which is good news.
Those quotes include removing what's presently there too, which is kind of neat.
In regards to the turf fields, I know it's a really high number, so this might be kind of silly, but with it being an athletic thing, I feel like we could consider fundraising for it. I don't really know exactly who that would be through, but I feel like, I mean, we as a community really care about our football team, and I think that we could probably raise some money for that. Obviously, $700 or $700,000 is a lot, but I think that's also something we could consider.
Yeah. I think I think that's a great idea. It's just you have to make sure you're trying to be equitable, right, when you start doing fundraising.
Yeah.
But we do, if you recall from my second slide, one of the things we do is use the facilities, and we use that money oftentimes to repair things where people are renting a lot, and we do rent out our fields occasionally. So, not rent, but youth sports uses them and whatnot. That field's used a lot. Both fields are used quite a bit.
I just want to say thank you, by the way, for I ref, coach, and play lacrosse all throughout the spring. So I use fields all the time. We always appreciate when they get I don't know, like you said, with the turf, when they get
Yep.
low and evened
Yep.
out. It's we appreciate.
You notice
every
a
time.
difference,
Yeah,
right?
we notice a difference
Yep.
every time.
Yeah, because it bunches up away from the
so you get,
goalie or.
oh my god, bumps. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
when they get smoothed out, it's
Yeah.
holding field.
Yeah, our new guys are all over
Wonderful.
it. They love maintaining it, so.
We appreciate it.
So, did I skip a slide? No. So, I definitely didn't put these in the capital for the different years, but, because of the failure of the roof on the pods at North Street, the town is engaged with us, and they want to do an audit of all roofs in all town buildings, including the school department. So these years that I'm suggesting this, are my wish, but we would of course work with the town once that audit has been completed. But the roof at North Street is really porous, if you will. Like when you take a picture of the rubber membrane and zoom in, I mean, the fact that the newer roof on those pods is the one that failed us is just shocking to me. But that's what happened. The rest of the roof, it's in desperate need of replacement. For next year, I put in $100,000 for just general roof repairs that we could try to get us through for a few more years and patch holes and whatnot. But 2027 would be based on the square footage in the materials used, and they vary on the different roofs. So for instance, the gymnasium at North Street is like regular tar that you would see on a residential house. And then the rest of the building is a rubber membrane. Is 3.5 million. Grafton Middle School, I think, has 3 or 4 different roof materials, one of them being foam that would have to be scraped up and not blown into Lake Ripple, which will be a challenge and expensive. That one's gonna be 4.5 million. And then South Grafton Elementary School has some significant problems as well. And that would be 2.5 million. So I'm eager to engage with the town to come up with a plan to fund these things, because it'll certainly be less disruptive, obviously, to the school day, but also it'll preserve the interior of the buildings as well. Any
Frank,
questions?
have you been contacted by the Facilities Assessment Committee?
No.
Okay, so this is a new committee that was just created by the Select Board, and their mission is within 18 months to inspect all town-owned buildings, which I would assume includes the
Mrs.
schools,
Mack.
and prepare a report on, with estimates and a recommended kind of time frame for that. I'm a little surprised. There's only 3 people on it right now, but there could be 7. So plug for anyone watching with experience in construction or facility maintenance. They're still looking for members for this committee. But they have begun their work already. They just inspected one of the fire stations last week. So I can send you this link, and maybe,
Please do.
maybe you could reach out to them and find out what their time frame is before they call you up and say, "We want to come to the school on a school day."
Mrs. Mack?
Yeah, go
If I
ahead.
could speak on that. I spoke with Ray Mead about that just about 2 weeks ago. We had breakfast, and he said that they were not touching the schools, that Frank is very well capable, and that they were not going to be doing the school buildings. So I just wanted to let you know before you, don't expect a phone call from Mr. Mead.
I'm happy to work with anybody.
They were going to do all the
But I
other-
like the compliment that I'm capable. I've been referred to as worse.
I find that, I find that shocking. Are you trying to say something?
No, I mean, I'm not shocked because that's a mindset that this town has had for a long time.
But square
But-
footage, don't you think the schools are a significant portion of the municipal holdings of physical space? So if the town's gonna have to pay for it one way or the other,
Yep.
They
it's
should-
just the thinking.
all right.
But yeah, it's not a bad idea to reach out anyway, because you have to communicate. I mean, like Evan needs, we can't just be in our bubble, our little school bubble. As beautiful as it is.
I did think it was a step forward in terms of the roof piece. Like they worked closely with Frank. I think with the grant they set up to have the assessment done. I liked, that was the first time in a long time we've had that collective effort. I mean, we have 600,000 square feet of roofs. It's a lot.
It's a lot of room.
Okay.
And then I just wanted to point out, sort of end on I think a positive note. We are able to secure funding for things that we don't ask for on capital that are big, what I would think are big ticket items. And here's just a list of a few. One, I think I mentioned already that we're gonna end up needing a plow truck this year to get us through the winter season. And we're gonna do that through a series of our maintenance budget and maybe find some money in a couple other pockets. Signage throughout the district, we've tasked one of our maintenance people with going through and inventorying, if that is such a word, all the faded signs. There's a lot of faded signs in the district that you can't really see, and he's been tasked with replacing all those. The leaking portico roof that's facing the parent drop-off at Millbury Street, which I would say is facing east. That roof has been leaking badly for quite a while. It's metal. It's like that picture I showed you, and that needs to be replaced. We're gonna figure out how to do that with our maintenance budget. And then HVAC controls. at the high school. The controls, when they were installed, I guess were pretty dated to begin with, so our ability to interact with them and troubleshoot all the different heating and air conditioning problems at the high school, which there are many, is very limited. And we're working with a company that, for $125,000, they could replace all the controllers and all the rooftop units there. And we believe that we're gonna be eligible, and I think the town's working with us to do a Green Communities grant for that, which would be great. Gym lights, if anyone's been to the gym, you need a flashlight to play basketball in there. Headlamps, so we want to switch those lights to LEDs. We've never fully had, Jay has explained to me that we've never really fully had full control over those lights. They're kind of wonky as to how to get them all on. It's very challenging. So to swap those out and put in LEDs, which most gyms have LEDs now, is about $40,000, and the electric company would basically do that work for us, and it would just be paid for with our savings. So I have no idea what the electrical bill is at the high school, but let's say it's $1,000 a month. The LEDs will knock that down to $800 a month, and that $200 savings will continue to pay $1,000, and the savings will just pay for the cost of the lights. The lights come free, and that would pay for the labor. And then new basketball scoreboards, like we did at the softball field. I included that in the packet. And then what we did at the football field, which I'll explain in a second, we're gonna ask for sponsorship for the basketball scoreboards and change those, because there's one that it goes off, and you basically have to throw a baseball at it and tap it with a baseball to get it to come back on. Which
That's not the one at the middle school?
I haven't even thought
Okay.
of.
Because I'm surprised, that one's got to be super, super old. I don't
Sometimes
know.
those old things, they'll work pretty well.
True. That's true.
So the one at the football field, the was not, the electricity to it was somehow, we couldn't get electricity to it, and there's a pipe under the track. We spent a lot of time trying to find it. Somehow that pipe, which is near that goalpost on that side, has been crushed. We can't snake through it, so we made it solar. We Bruce Lee'd it. We went with it. It told us it didn't want power to the panel anymore. It wanted solar, and we gave it to it. So it's working fine, except the horn doesn't work. You guys know about the horn?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
it's okay. At least it's working.
Questions?
When we speak about signage, I love signs, and there's a sign that I've been trying to get for years from the Mass Department of Transportation had recommended it at the corner down here on Providence Road to tell kids of the walking route where they're supposed to walk in front of the tennis courts, because every year, and somebody at this table knows this, every year we have kids who dart past the exit, dart past the entrance before they walk up to the middle school, and it's dangerous.
Like they cut through the parking lot.
No, they cut, like they're cutting, like as the cars are exiting, there's a kid will run across the exit, and then they'll walk, and then as cars are entering, they'll run across the entrance instead of using the allocated walking route, but there's no signage there to tell the kids of this walking route.
I assure you I will take a look.
Yes, please do. Thank you so much.
Okay? Any other questions?
No, thanks so much. I wanted to point, did you have something?
I was just gonna say it was incredibly
Go.
comprehensive and useful, and thank you. Really,
Thank you.
I mean, sobering in many ways, but good for planning purposes. So, thank you for all the work you put into it.
I
Thanks.
just wanted to give Frank another shout out. I had contacted him, I don't know, over the summer about some issues on the stage at the high school. And despite everything else that he has going on, he and Shauna met with me and we went over my concerns, and there were other concerns on top of that. And I just want to say thank you so much. As a parent, not as a school committee member, there were some safety issues that we were really worried about, and those have been taken care of.
We
So,
think they've been,
we
taken.
think.
I haven't confirmed that, but yes, we had a company in this past week, and They gave us an estimate, we agreed to it, and I haven't checked the work that was done. That's gonna happen tomorrow.
Well, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Jay?
Yes.
You good?
What?
Okay.
You're
You
shocked.
look like you wanted to say something.
No, that was so random. Thank you very much.
What?
I don't know. He turned it to me. I don't know why.
Oh,
I was just sitting here
okay.
innocently for once.
All right, so the next item is FY '26 budget development staffing. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that we're not recommending an increase to the maintenance budget. He didn't actually say that. but-
I think we built in maybe 3%.
Okay.
We did build
Okay.
in something. It was fairly modest. I think the spreadsheet that was shared
It's 3% across the board.
is 3%, but we're gonna still probably keep it at 3%, but move some of those numbers around, especially the school-based. Okay.
That microphone is super sensitive tonight, huh?
All right, so we are going to present a number of different pieces to you this evening. I'm going to speak first to just a brief staffing update. We know at this point that it's pretty early in the game, but we have met as a central office team with all of the, are we good?
No, I don't have this, what she's presenting.
It's in the folder.
Oh, there we go. She didn't have it either. We both didn't have it. Then I'll do it. No, mine's just 3 pages. Is
Yeah,
that what
mine's
yours
3
is?
Yeah,
Is that what this is?
that's what this is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yep. Mine is 3 slides and then you'll be rid of me. So we, as a central office team, met with all of the building teams and heard their original just big picture idea in terms of enrollment, how our enrollment is going to affect our current staffing. So that's what I have to show you here. So we have on the top is our best estimate at this point with staffing requests. And on the bottom is our best guess as to where we can make potential reductions. So the first that I'll speak to is an increase in our ELL department. We can certainly get some numbers in front of you in the coming months in terms of what caseloads look like and things like that. But essentially over the past 4 years, we've seen about a 70% growth in our ELL students. We have a number of students who are actually not just new to Grafton, but new to the US. So the level of language intensive instruction that they require is pretty high, which is having a pretty direct effect on our students, and on our ELL teachers' caseloads. We're most highly impacted at North Street and at the high school. We have made some shifts in our interventionist program right now that have allowed us to do a recent posting for a 0.5 ELL teacher, which is an active posting as we speak. We're hoping to put that individual at South Grafton. So it's really just another 1.5 on top of it, but it reads as 2. And it's just to even out the services that we're able to provide to these students. I think we have around 104 in district right now. Yep.
So I love hearing that we're having so much diversity moving into the town. That's wonderful. Does the extra ELL, and I don't know this, does that kick us up a notch for getting funding?
It will.
It might,
Yeah, it
That's a
will.
good question.
I mean, not
not
a
now.
significant amount,
Yeah.
but it will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have an ELL coordinator for all these teachers?
Jen Mannion.
Jen Mannion is.
So, okay, but that's just the curriculum director.
Correct.
So
Do we see
that's-
ourselves getting a designated ELL
But if we
coordinator?
could afford it, we would have already done it, no question about it.
So that's where that comes from. At the middle school level, we currently are running a really amazing program in the math department, and they're looking to essentially match that program in the literacy area as well. So what you see here in front of you, the literacy support teacher, is really kind of a mirror image of the program that's running under Robin Bergen at the middle school for math. It's been really successful, and so they're hoping, in best case scenario, to be able to bring a literacy support teacher on board as well. And then in a moment, we're going to look at the enrollment. You have that in front of you as well. But it does look like we're going to need to increase at North Street by 1 teacher and at Millbury Street by 2 teachers, really just for the purpose of keeping class sizes at a manageable number. And then the staffing shifts and the reductions where possible. So I spoke briefly already to the interventionists. It came about through attrition. We had some changes within the department, and we took the opportunity to look at the funding and how we could allocate that to our highest level of need in the district right now, which is our ELL students. We had a number of unexpected move-ins at the beginning of the year, so that's just an area that we are looking to prioritize right now. And this past year, well, I guess this current year, our kindergarten classes at South Grafton are just 5 sections. We currently have 6 sections of first grade. We will only need 5 sections of first grade. I mean, the kindergarten enrollment remains to be seen. We're not really sure what that will look like, but at this point in the game in November, this is our best estimate. So we can take a look at the enrollment, just so you see what it is that we are working with class size numbers. So there in the red would be the reduction from 6 sections of first grade down to 5, keeping your class size numbers at roughly about 22. And then the other one, in the other areas where you see the green, if we only increased by 1.0 FTE at Millbury Street, it would have class size numbers at 27, which is pretty high. And we'd like to try and avoid that. So by going with the 2.0 FTEs, it would bring class sizes to 21 to 22 across the board. So that's our best estimate at this point. Any questions?
More great news.
Mrs. Mayor.
Question. There's 2 asterisks on 12 plus up there. What does that mean?
12 plus right here.
Oh, our 18 to 22 program. And the 2 asterisks was probably some reminder to me that it's highly speculative, basically.
Yeah.
But we're slated to have 13 right now.
And the 20 leaving for BVT in private schools, is that,
Yeah,
how do you arrive at that? I know it's hard to
That's
get.
history, just doing it
Yeah.
for 14 years. It served us really, really
Okay.
well.
'Cause I know they
But
keep
it certainly
increasing.
could shift. Didn't realize, I mean, we had 3 kids move in today, so we could have kids move in. We will have kids move in, and we will have kids move out. Like, this is November. But as of that snapshot, whenever we did it, the 14th, that's simply moving everything forward a year and taking a look at where we are to give us our best guess.
Questions from the committee? Yeah, Christie.
If you go back to the last slide with your increase and decrease, what is the net overall cost that you're foreseeing this to the district for these?
If we went with straight teacher, I would assume we usually utilize an average of 65,000. The literacy support, typically, we would have a little more experience, so I would guess more like 72. ELL is kind of a crapshoot in that right now the market for ELL is incredibly challenging. But those are the 2 positions. Right now, when I look at that, we have to have, no matter what the scenario, no override, reductions, we are still going to need that 2.0 ELL. Could we have move-outs? Sure, but we're not gonna see, 20 kids drop out. You probably said this, but we've gone up 70%
Yeah.
since 2020. I mean, and there's no sign of it going down. So even with that 2, I'm gonna guess in another year, we'll still be short. So to answer your question, generally, we use 65,000. I boosted up a little more for literacy.
So maybe around 300,000, is that what we're thinking? 250,
It's
300?
Yeah, I'd probably 370, something like that.
Okay.
Plus, not plus health insurance, but that would be on the town side.
Correct.
That's on the town, yeah.
So I want to clarify something. The shifts, do we then subtract? So the net is 5 positions or not?
Yeah,
Essentially.
Okay.
right.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make a personal observation about did somebody have a hand up?
Nope.
Please just say my name if I'm not looking at you and you want to talk.
Make sure you know.
Because I don't want to miss, sometimes my peripheral vision is not the greatest. I just wanted to talk quickly about class sizes. I think that there's a tendency to think that keeping class sizes small in the low 20s is only important at the lower grades, but I had a meeting with Jay. We talked about 6th grade and the unique challenges that are present in that grade level. It's the first year, I believe, if I remember right, that they're switching for every class.
Correct.
So there's a lot of movement in hallways. They're not staying together as a cohort the way they do in 5th grade, unless that has changed.
Wait, no.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I had a 6th grader just last year, and they move as a cohort.
They do move as cohort,
Yeah.
okay. All right, I stand corrected.
But they're moving classrooms.
But they're moving classrooms as opposed to having teachers,
And they get letter grades, like, there's a lot of changes.
27 is
Big.
is big for that age group. They need a lot of individualized attention, and, with differentiated instruction, when you have 27 kids, so I guess I just kind of want to put that out there in the universe that, it's just 6th grade is not good with me. That level is particularly challenging as it is. Being in elementary school as opposed to a middle school is another challenge that, we're just not going to escape it. But we need to make their educational experience as positive as possible. So I would definitely support adding staff there.
Are class sizes listed here for the high school?
No. We'll eventually have that, but that's gonna be based on registration for the different classes. It's not just you take 237 and divide it by whatever.
I had the same question when I met with Jay on Thursday, Megan.
Yeah, it's a good question. If I can say that. But we will have that.
I know it's usually all over the place, like some
Yep.
classes
Yeah,
are
based
huge,
on-
some are really small.
Yep.
Other questions from the committee? Questions or comments? Okay. Thank you. I know you guys
Can I
are
ask a
working.
quick question? I just have, and I don't think there's really a clear answer to this, but it's like this, so this 6th grade class is, a big class, or this incoming 6th grade class will be a big class. It's like, but then they're gonna move up, or do we anticipate this sort of just like, and then we're probably gonna need more
And
7th
we've
grade?
always-
It's just,
Pretty-
this
yeah,
is
I mean,
what we're
that's-
doing,
A
right?
teacher
Yeah.
from 6th grade
Yep.
to 7th or 8th
Yeah.
grade.
Yep.
depending
Although,
on
I mean, it doesn't go down that much right afterwards, so maybe, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, it's fairly typical to have like
Yeah.
a group that we adjust in-house as much as we can based, like
Yeah.
Jay said, on certification and,
Yeah.
if there's one kind of bubble year, if that's what you call it, maybe the year behind it isn't as big, but,
Yeah, that's when it saves.
I know,
If
it's
this
kind of a,
hasn't happened.
it's a bummer that your tiny class is followed by your giant class. It's just like boop, boop, boop,
Yep.
boop. Yeah, so, anyway, that's all. Not a question, really.
Anything else? Thank you. I know you guys have been working on this. I know it's really hard to put numbers out in public when, there's so much uncertainty out there. You just don't know.
And we'll, with everything else, I mean, we're about to talk more about FY '26, but we're just gonna keep bringing this back. Like, once we get, it won't be every meeting, but in a month or two, we can look again. We can get another snapshot. We'll have more information um, after the break about high school and middle school and those numbers. Keep going?
Yep.
Yeah, right. So a couple things I wanted just to keep on your radar. I provided in the folder some information about an instrument leasing program. I did, since providing that, talked with Pete Singley and Steve Trombley, wonderful music teachers at the high school and the middle school. They're the ones that brought it to me initially. The idea they'd like to come either December or after the break and present on the program. Reached out to Northborough, Southborough, and Algonquin. That's their high school. They have been using an instrument leasing program. They have actually 5 different leases, and they run it K through, or maybe it's 2 through 12, but they do it across the board. They say it's fantastic. Obviously, it comes with the cost. In the grand scheme of things, for what they proposed, if we did a 5-year lease, we'd be looking at about, I think it was just shy of $13,000 a year. So big money, but I think the impact could be significant. It reminds me a lot of where we stood with technology before we transitioned to a leasing program, where we had a lot of outdated stuff. We spent a ton of money and a ton of time trying just to keep everything functional. And that all pretty much changed once we had a new refresh program tied to a lease. So that was it. And I put I do know what these are, but they can speak to the importance of all these different instruments. And I never knew they were so expensive. And we do have this stuff, but you guys in music? Right? You guys, okay.
I played in elementary school. It's
Okay.
up there.
All right. They'll obviously know the ins and outs of all of this and can just speak to it as an idea that I think should at least be considered. And this was the breakdown based on what you saw in the previous slide with all those different instruments of, what the annual payment would be.
Can you go back a slide for a
Yep.
minute? I just wanted to comment on the cost of the instruments. So, full disclosure, my son plays the oboe. He uses the school oboe. He takes lessons using the school oboe. He wants to be a professional oboe player. The list price is half of what you would pay if you walked into a store and bought that oboe.
Yeah.
I wish that when they published this list, they would show the true prices of these instruments and not what David French would charge. Because it is $3,800, bare minimum. That is an intermediate level oboe, not a professional grade. Ask me how I know. So there's my disclosure statement, everyone. This would directly impact my child. I think it's a good idea to look at anything that's going to save us money in the long run, even if it looks like it's going to be expensive up front. I think to do due diligence, we should take a look. Because we're incurring costs now that we don't even know about to maintain some instruments that are old. I think one of the things that I saw was a gong, which made me laugh. They do have a gong for the band. The band uses a gong, and there's a frame for it. And I think I saw a social media post where a student had actually rebuilt the frame, like tried to repair the frame for the gong, because if you don't have the frame, you can't play it. You can't gong the gong. So I did notice that there was a gong and a frame. Some of these instruments predate the current staff's time here, and they've been limping along and getting repairs done, and I think at some point down the road, we're going to incur some major costs for this. So I think it's good to look at it now, even if the timing
Sure.
is not super great, giving an impending override. I get that. But I think we need to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Anybody disagree? Again, full disclosure, impacts my kid. Yeah.
I don't disagree, but I just question, do you want to go with the 5-year because it's cheaper per year? Or, I mean, at the 2-year, you're saving $13,000 over the 5-year.
I'm definitely not married to that at all. That was based off of just the discussion with Northborough, Southborough. They just roll 5 years, I'm guessing, for that very reason, for the annual payment, but I can't say that for sure. So,
We'll see what
I'm
works with
definitely not
schedules.
married to any of it.
Have you come in?
All right. We provided a simple spreadsheet with transportation costs. It was super simplistic at this point. We are going out to bid this year. Across the board, all districts that I'm aware of are building in at least 10% for FY '26. That's the anticipated increase in terms of transportation. So you will see, yes.
Sorry, I heard Dan Gale speak about this at the MASC. He was saying 50%.
I heard too.
10%, I think, might be a little low.
Yeah.
I mean-
Kathleen and I were having that discussion today.
I'm very worried. I know we talked about
It's
this.
early, we may
Yeah.
up it, but right now, that spread, it's pretty straightforward. Everything went up by 10%. The one piece on that went from 90,000 down to 0 is not real in terms of we haven't saved 90,000, which we did. Right now, we've got McKinney-Vento Transportation on that operating spreadsheet. That's a really tricky, super speculative, maybe the most speculative piece of the whole budget, to be quite frank, in that it follows funding. We receive funding for it, but it trails by a year. We as a district are responsible for transporting any homeless students, whether it be here or their home district, if you will. So somebody's homeless in a homeless setting in Grafton, but their original school where they went for the last year, 2 years, 3 years is up to an hour away. We are responsible for funding that transportation to and from. It could be for the year, it could be longer sometimes. But that is almost, it is impossible to predict. We just go on past history. We had been low the year before. I think it was 67,000, bumped it up, or something like that, bumped it up to 90 this past year. And that money actually goes to the town. They give it to us. So we are working with Mary and downstairs to figure out the best place to put that in the budget. It may stay there, but I'm guessing we will move it somewhere else. Any questions about transportation?
Yeah, do we ever get to the point where we just do our own busing or partner with a neighboring town? I mean, this is like if the costs are gonna keep going up 50%, like this is getting unsustainable.
We can look at that. That's a big undertaking to look at. It's a tremendously huge undertaking to actually do. Very few districts are making that. I think
Worcester
maybe
is.
Worcester did.
is, yeah.
I mean, that's like comparing
Right.
me to Hulk Hogan. Wow. It's incredibly complex and costly, but if the committee wants me to, I'm more than happy to look into it.
I mean, I can't
I can
imagine.
look to see if any other districts, short of
I
a
think
city.
Framingham, I mean,
Yep.
it's cities
Right.
that we're
Yeah,
talking
that's
about.
where
I
I'm
would,
So I would wonder if you could partner with another town, like if you talked with Millbury, Grafton,
But we would
Millbury.
need the busing
I don't
at the
know
same
of any
time.
that are doing that. I can ask around.
Yeah.
Definitely none that I know of in AVC or SWEC. The ones who partner with AA are considered like the luckiest districts ever. But I don't know of a single district shy of the cities, and that's Framingham, Worcester.
oh, Marlboro.
Marlboro doesn't.
Marlboro, yeah, I
No,
heard that.
they don't.
I was just talking
During the
with them.
process.
Unless they just did it,
I
because
think
they
they're
were
look-
getting caught last year with
Yeah, they didn't even
Westboro.
have bus drive, yeah.
No.
But that they weren't doing their own.
I can't
They
remember
were
what she said
definitely
to
caught
me.
up in the company that was not successful.
Yeah, regardless.
But I can at least do preliminary, find out if there are any area districts that are doing it.
I mean, in that 50%.
Some do, some you'll go, if you ever, sorry if I cut you off, but sometimes you'll go to, I don't know, my kids used to have soccer in Acton, so I'd drive there and on the weekends, walk around their school facility and they'd have like 10, almost like the mini buses or the large vans, like they'll at least not do general ed, full transportation, but they'll pick up that piece. That I could, even that's a lot of work. I mean, you need somebody to coordinate that. Frank, our director of buildings and grounds, does our busing. not the most natural fit. And that's with a private, so going,
We're also
Going
taking on that
in-house.
staff then
I'm
too,
sorry?
so then we're taking
Yeah,
on
that would
more
be a lot.
employees
Oh, we
to
would
drive the buses.
100% have to have more staff.
I personally wouldn't want you to be spending a lot of time on that right now.
Right.
I'll at least ask
Yeah,
them.
no, that's fine. But my other question is, with the transportation costs going up, will the bus fees go up as well?
That would be
That
up
would
to
be up
us.
to
Up to
us.
you.
To decide, yeah.
Yeah.
We would decide that, yeah. I wanted to put out there, like, I do think in about 10, 20 years, I think that we'll be putting these transportation companies out of business because it's just not sustainable. As more cities start their own busing, that's gonna open up avenues for smaller towns to go back to doing their own busing, which seems counterintuitive, but there are benefits to that. There is like I think there's like a 2 or 3 year lead time right now on getting buses. Like if you order a bus today, we won't see it for 2 or 3 years at this point because the demand is going up. So that's something to consider too, that any research we would do into this now, we're not gonna have our own busing next year. This is a long-term situation, and you're nodding because I know you know. But, it's like ordering a fire truck. It's gonna be, a few years before we would actually get them. I mean, there are definitely benefits, there are drawbacks, but there are benefits, like with anything else. Having to manage employees is a drawback, but having control over those employees is a benefit. Direct control, I mean, we don't right now. So that's something to consider, but I do think it's a much further down the road decision that we would be making. Anybody else?
Do we know what is driving the cost up of the service?
Can I guess? They basically have a monopoly. They're raising the price because they can. I get this question, this is like the third most common question I get. Why don't we just use a different bus company? The only other bus company we could use is super not great, and they can't bid lower than this company anyway. Jay's gritting his teeth, I know.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. Employment costs,
Yeah.
it's very hard. Well, AA is one of the, maybe only, but one of the very few that's fully staffed. And even that, it's, every day I do traffic, and I know when the guys are coming by that they're all licensed, but they'll pull off like mechanics that work on, like they're working their tails off just to cover the routes. You can go through, I was driving in Worcester and saw, I must have seen 6 billboards for advertising for bus drivers. And many, many districts just can't, they'll fill 60% of their routes on a given day. And it's a huge issue.
If only we were a city like Boston and we had public transportation that we could make use of.
Monorail.
What, monorail? Anybody else? This is a great meeting.
I'm almost, okay.
This
so here
might
was-
be the worst meeting I've ever chaired. Nope.
Oh,
Oh, come on.
Third worst meeting I've ever chaired. This is all like depressing.
oh, no.
Let's have some joy.
Yeah, so here's 10%.
We
It could
tried
be
to make-
15.
10%.
We
But
tried to-
we're gonna bring this back, obviously in December, we should hopefully have that full book. This was really just an update, answer questions you had. You've seen this before, we've now done operations, the HR staffing, so now we have all of the big pieces, if you will, and put everything together, present that preliminary FY '26 budget, and again, with the staffing, with, to some degree, we'll have at least a placeholder for instrument leasing, like knowing it's not, we're not gonna have the funding for all of that. But then the next part after December is taking a look at it, hopefully having the updated forecast from the town by that point in a more developed number for FY '26 that we can kind of use as our barometer. So in January, we'll take a look at potential reduction scenarios, assuming that we're going to have to at least consider those, and then hopefully have something for the committee to approve in February or March. You've seen this before. I believe the town side worked with their consultant last Friday. Hopefully that'll be wrapped up in the next week or two, and we can get the updated forecast. I do not know of a scenario whereby which we wouldn't need an override for the coming years and following years. It's gonna be a matter of, does it get on the ballot? What level of services we're gonna be looking for, how long it would be designed to last, and what would the cost be? Next steps, as I've already touched on, we'll have that book together by before December 10th and be able to speak to that. I did want to, I had, I think, 2 slides that I threw in. I was asked, I think it came up at the last meeting, the question, or maybe it was after the last meeting, I was asked about unemployment. And I wanted to touch on that tonight, because I was also asked by a committee member yesterday about it. So I arbitrarily, this is just for the purpose of building understanding, if we reduced 1.2 million in personnel, which unless the forecast is radically different, I would expect we'd be at that number, if not above it. So if I just looked at personnel, I used my whiteboard, put down, just after doing this a long time, what my best guess for the reductions would be to get to 1.2 million. That included all of those different groups. So I tried to make it kind of across the board, didn't take some, really cutting edge, we're just gonna wipe out whatever. So I made it across the board, my best thinking, just for the purpose of this. Following the RIF guidelines, so anytime you have a reduction in force with all of the 4 units we have, the people who get let go are those without professional status. They're the last to come in. They generally, typically, are earning less than those who have been here for a long time. That's how it works. So following those guidelines, reduced 23 positions, which is just about what I expected at the beginning of the exercise. When you average everything, so the highest salary, obviously down to the lowest salary, average everything about $53,000, a little more than that. So 23 positions, 53,000. That part shouldn't be a surprise. Here's where we get to the unemployment piece. So in this scenario that I just laid out, that 23 positions, you need to build in about $18,000 per person for unemployment, because we are responsible for those costs going forward. It's very speculative. Some people will get jobs, in a week. Some people won't, and they'll be on unemployment, and we'll be covering that cost. So it's 100% not an exact science. But if you go short on this and people can't get jobs, then you're reducing again to cover those costs during the school year, or you're eliminating something that, if we're making reductions, there's nothing more to give. So you want to avoid that. So in this scenario, and this is just purely as an example, while we'd have to reduce if we reduced 1.2 million in personnel, you have to add another 414,000 for unemployment costs. That works out to another 7 positions. This is where that vicious cycle kicks in, because you then have to add 2 more positions to cover unemployment for the 7 that you used to cover the original unemployment. So that 23 really becomes 32 positions. So is that clear? I'm not helping the worst meeting ever scenario, but in terms of the realities of unemployment costs, does that make sense? Okay. It's unfortunate. We'll work with the town to get an actual number, but it's all speculative. But they'll say, we're comfortable with 18 or 20 or 17, whatever it is.
Can I ask one question?
Of course you can.
So go back to, all right, so I understand the last in, first out
Yep.
mentality, having worked in corporate America.
Mhm.
Is it also true of administration, even though it's not a contractual thing?
No,
Okay.
no, and I didn't take that into account when I.
No, I just wanted to clarify it, that,
Yeah, there are a few positions, like, I don't have maintenance on there, we're short-staffed if anything, but with maintenance, you could do that.
Anyone who's not part of.
Yeah, anybody who's not part of a unit, but we don't have many people.
Right.
33 or something, but all the other,
If
the
that,
actual
yeah.
units you would, if that, 33. All right, last bad news. And this, I was asked about timing yesterday, so I'm glad that at least makes sense.
Oh,
The
I was gonna ask
timing
this.
piece is really lousy. And I don't think there's any, I haven't figured out any way around this, but up on the top above that green bar, we would typically, like, if we're not gonna move forward with somebody for performance, for whatever, we just have to, in a given year, make a shift and move away from somebody, we typically try to let them know by the end of April. A lot of, by contract, we usually don't have to tell people until like the beginning of June. That, we've never, for 14 years, operated like that because of what I'm about to talk about. We want to tell people as early as we can and be fair about it and be upfront about it. So we typically do that in late April. And then we have that town meeting in May, and if we end up having an override vote, I would expect that to be in June. Okay. In the yellow, from late April, usually after April break, or during April break, that's where people in the field of education, if they know they're not gonna have a position, they ramp up, they get ready for the process, it makes sense. Beginning of, or mid-April through the end of the school year is like the ideal traditional hiring window. That's where the cream of the crop, that's where you want to be looking for a job, and that's when you want to hire. With us having an override vote in June, and I sound like I'm complaining, but I'm not, I'm just trying to illustrate what we're up against. If we are making reductions, be it 32 or 2 people, we're gonna have to tell them pretty early. Like, unless we're gonna have a big shift in how we operate. If we don't get an override vote, this is the impact. So somebody in that case can wait till June and not do a thing, and wait till June whatever, and hope the override passes, and then say, oh, phew. Or they're gonna be looking for a position when it's prime time to look for a position. On the hiring end, so people are, without a doubt, even if it passes, we will have people who say, look, I've got a family, I need whatever, I need to survive, I need to find a job. They're gonna find a job, commit to that, and then even if it passes, we're gonna have to backfill. There's no question about it. If we have to do, whatever we have to do for hiring, post-override, we're gonna get it done, but it's, that traditional hiring window has passed.
Tier of candidates that we would be hoping to
It's
be
by
able
the
to
time you
select from.
post in June, you wait the 2 weeks, in reality, you're hiring in July.
I know this doesn't make it any better, but we would know on May 20th. That's the date that we would vote.
Oh, it is, okay, so that
Because
makes
the
it look
week,
good.
2 week before is town meeting. That's the first vote. The ballot will be on the 20th.
You're
It's already
thinking
set.
June of 2020?
I thought it was beginning of June.
Because we pushed it off
COVID.
because of COVID in June.
All right, so a
But the
couple more
first-
weeks, that helps
Actually, the
us.
first one was in June too, though. It was June 14th.
Yeah, well, they were both in
They
June,
were both
Yeah.
in June. I don't know why.
but we'll take late May.
It's-
if
it's
that's
set
the
by
case.
charter,
But-
so.
But this is, that helps us.
I mean, a little, right?
The timing's gonna be.
I mean, the only other thing I can think of, and, just throwing this out there, it's probably not gonna be super popular. We could call a special election. It still has to go to town meeting. We could call a special town meeting and a special election.
Well, it sounds like, based on what you said, that it's gonna be pretty close.
It
That's
is
better
pretty
than-
close, but it's not gonna be April.
No, I get that. So,
I'm not
something to talk
super
about in the
happy about
future,
it, but I'm not discounting the
Yep.
concept either. Go ahead.
So, so my question is, if you're saying that you would in theory have to talk to people in April or give them sort of a heads up, are you having those like internal conversations right now about who those people would be?
No,
'Cause-
not yet.
okay.
No,
But
that
it's
would
like-
be,
There's no scenario that I'm seeing where you wouldn't have to be having that conversation in April with people, because we're not
Correct.
gonna know
Yep.
anything. Okay.
no, we'd
Right.
have to work through scenarios, obviously, with the school committee. And we're just I want to be crystal clear. I don't want another headline in the paper. This is purely, yeah, thank you. The purpose of this is for understanding about that impact of unemployment that I touched on the last meeting, but it caused some confusion. Hopefully, it's a much smaller number and it's much more manageable. The other piece, obviously, that we're waiting for is that town forecast. So we took the original town forecast and basically took it apart to figure out, what our best guess was for what things looked like for us. And things are, in our world, kind of on hold until we get our hands on the new forecast. And that's it for my complaints tonight.
Any other questions, comments?
Are there any retirements coming up that we?
Yeah,
Not 32.
nothing official, but maybe a couple. Yeah, not 32.
I believe in the past we have offered early retirements, have we not?
Yeah, I think we did once. At some point, I'm happy to present on that. We actually haven't, I talked to somebody about it today. Was it you? Oh, it's Mandy. It needs to be typically a pretty substantial number. I forget what Dan Gale and I, when I saw him, we talked about that. We couldn't remember what the number was, but for somebody to retire before they reach 80%, unless it's awfully close, you're talking, that percentage might not seem too much, like we could outpace that for a year, maybe two, but they're gonna get that percentage for the rest of their life.
Right.
So it's gotta be pretty sizable. The only districts I've seen where it has resulted in numerous retirements, that number was significant. I think we did 10 or 20,000. That's, in the grand scheme of things, when you think of somebody's, the rest of their life, I think we used it, and I think we had 3 retirements, but my gut told me we probably would have had 3 retirements anyhow.
Total or per?
On the given year that we did, one year we did a retirement incentive, and we had like 3 retirees, but
And they got it but they got the extra money for that year or
for that year.
okay.
But they're, on their end, they had to retire early, and therefore, instead of getting,
But their
let's say,
pension-
80% for
Their
the rest of
pension- The pension would be the same though, right?
No, the
No.
pension's
No,
impacted if you
No,
retire
if
early.
you go
Yeah.
early.
Oh, is it reduced?
Yeah,
Is
so
it
you
set?
gotta weigh it out. We can give you the short term, here you go, here's
That sounds
however
great.
much money, which seems great for a year, maybe 2, but in year 10, when you're down the road, you might not love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
No,
Oh,
thank you.
Sorry, forgot. Oh, are we still?
Okay. Employee handbook.
Are we going back? All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
I don't have slides.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Back. Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen.
Can I indulge the committee? It's almost 9 o'clock. I'd like to get the students out of here.
Absolutely.
So can we have them do their report and then they can go home?
Thank you. So the class of 20, oh, you want me to start?
I was saying I can stay on you guys. Grafton football continues in playoffs with the Final Four game against Situate this Saturday at Walpole at 1. MIA tickets are required for all. Student Council is hosting a coat drive right now until November 22nd. Grafton Food Pantry is hosting a Thanksgiving food drive available at Grafton High School up until Thanksgiving. DECA will be attending a mock competition at Nichols College this Thursday, and the class of 2026 is continuing their winter hat fundraiser. And also winter sports tryouts start next week, I'm pretty sure. And we have them for, boys hockey, girls and boys basketball, and indoor track are offered.
The class of 2025 is selling car magnets. We have the school play Friday and Saturday at 7, and then the Sunday one is at 2. And it's going to be a murder mystery. It's called This Murder is Staged. And it's at GHS. And then there's 3 different endings each night, so you should come to all of them. Of course, we have Thanksgiving break next week from the 27th to the 29th. And then we just released the NHS juniors pretty recently. And new members and seniors. The induction night is the December 4th. And then senior families, you can buy parent ad pages in the yearbooks for your senior to congratulate them. You can talk about the seniors' activities and accomplishments. And then we're still selling 2025 yearbooks. And then the MEFA info session about paying for college is tomorrow in the auditorium from 6:30 to 7:30. Sorry. And there's going to be a MEFA representative to answer questions.
And that's all we have.
Awesome. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Good night.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Thanksgiving.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming.
We'll go back now to staff handbook.
We sure will. My understanding is that the committee has had the draft of this employee handbook for a couple of weeks. I didn't receive any feedback. So what we originally distributed is what we have for your review this evening. There's one policy in the table of contents that's highlighted. I believe it's because it's up for its second reading this evening. But that's what we have. If there's any questions or comments.
Anybody?
Really well organized.
Yeah, I like the organization of it a lot. Christy?
So I do have feedback on this. So back in August, I rambled off all the policies, and then I met with Dr. Cummings and I gave him the list of policies, and policy subcommittees have done a great job of getting those passed. We're still missing some of these policies in the handbook. EEAJ, the motor vehicle idling on school grounds, that's required by Mass General Law. JICK, harassment of students. JIH, searches and interrogations. In addition to that, on page 7, in the table of contents, it refers to hiring, background checks, and personal records. When you talk about background checks, there's a blurb in there, but it's not our policy. We have 2 policies, ADDA, AADA-R. One is for background checks and one's for CORI policy. I feel that if anything's mentioned in this handbook and we have a policy for it, it should be our policy. Now, those policies are in our manual, but they have not been approved, so those would require approval. While we're looking at page 7, on the index, on the table of contents rather, you say personal files and it refers to policy GBJ, but on page 7, it says, no, I'm sorry, originally it says personal records, but on page 7 it says personal files, which is a blurb that's not our policy. It does not have our policy there.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is what's written here in direct contradiction to our policy?
It's just not our policy. And all the other things that are, like, if she says it, then it's the policy. It's just a different blurb. If we're gonna be putting the policies in, it should match up. We shouldn't have 2 different versions.
But does every,
The other ones all match up, yeah.
I mean, if the spirit,
I mean, well, either way, you gotta put the policy link in it because you don't have it down there like we
right,
did.
I was gonna say, do we have a policy link for every single
Yeah,
section?
yeah.
We don't. Wage and hour policies and paid time off, like.
Yeah, because those aren't policies. Those are just blurbs. Where there's a policy, there's a link.
Okay.
Next, on page 11, we talk about the non-discrimination policy and grievance procedure. So I clicked on that link that is provided. That just goes to the MASC homepage. That's not a procedural page at all.
What page is that again?
Page 11. And then I went back, so I was like, oh, I wonder, like, is it in our policy correctly? No, it's not. In our ACA policy, that link also just links us back to the MASC page.
Are there multiple policies, though, that you would want to look for on our page?
No, like if other districts, for instance, when you click on their link for their procedures, like it comes up with the whole how to do this, and you can fill out an online form if you have a non-discrimination, like there's a like districts have procedures in place.
So we don't.
Well, yeah, but we can't have a link that we can't say we do and have a link that just takes us back to the homepage.
Well, but I feel like it takes us to our policies where you can find the procedures.
Right, it's not,
But the
it's
pres-
not
the-
a lie, right?
Right, but what is the procedure?
Well, it depends on the type of grievance, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah,
it says,
Right,
right, I
but-
just clicked on civil rights grievance procedure. It's right here in the policy.
Yeah.
Okay,
don't
that's fine.
have
I
an
mean,
issue
other
with it.
districts have like a link that takes them to a procedural page, but
Okay.
that's fine. Next on page 18 through 26, you put the domestic violence leave in, under general employment practices. I think that should go under the time off practices, just like jury duty, FMLA, any of that. It's a time off.
Is that based on something, or is that
Oh.
just your opinion?
I mean, it's my opinion because
Okay.
it reflects time off, just as FMLA isn't a general practice. In addition to that, you reference political activity. We have a policy on that. Our policy is GBI. Again, I think if we have a policy on something that you're referring to, we should refer to the policy. And then under the use of district technology and resources, last week, we spoke at this meeting, and I had mentioned then that those policies, IJND and IJNDC, needed to be in the handbook. And they're not. And just as a general thought, I think that names, like the superintendent's name, and we should have formalized names and titles in this. It's an external document.
I just, yeah.
I don't know. What are you referring to when you say that?
Like on the cover page, it says J. Cummings instead of Dr. James Cummings. It says, like, on our budget book, it's all the names. I don't care. I'm just, on the budget book, all the names are formalized.
I'm happy to do whatever the committee wants with those, you know, if those are pieces of feedback that you want me to implement, I just will probably need it in an email just so I can look at it.
Well, I mean, the policy EEAJ, that's one required by MGL, and it's not in the book, so.
Okay.
IJND and IJNDC.
Yeah, we spoke at
Why,
that.
yeah, but
We spoke of it last time because it talks
why
about.
do they have to be in the?
Well, we had spoken about it last time because when we talk about acceptable uses of digital resources, that's what this is about. And if
Right.
we're going to talk about it, we need to reference the policy on it.
So I guess
Because we don't want to have two different types of information, right? Like the whole reason we have the policy, and that's part of the reason of the handbook, is to reference the policy on it.
I guess one thing that I will say is that I think there's a difference between an opinion that something should be included
Okay.
and what the law says. Okay? So I want to make sure that we're being deliberate when we talk about it, that this is, does this meet what the law requires?
This book, no.
Okay. So what I guess we should do is, and I'm just throwing this out there, anything that's missing that is required by law, other than the policy that's highlighted, that we'll talk about tonight, because then it will be ready, it'll be in there. And this can't get distributed until any of these policies is up on the MASC page anyway, is my understanding, right? So people can use it.
Right.
No, I would disagree on that, just because, look, what if the MASC website goes down? What if we make a change on things? Like, we've approved them in public session, like, yes, they're gonna get there soon. I sent a bunch, they're not up yet, you know.
I'm not,
I don't know.
I'm not making a judgment about anybody
No,
not
no,
doing
no,
something.
no,
I'm
no,
just saying,
that's-
before this gets distributed to employees,
It would make sense, yes, but I'm just saying,
we would
like,
wait to do that until those links are working, is all I'm saying.
November, and we've been dragging this
Yeah.
out, like,
Our
I'm
goal
curious
with
when,
sorry.
no, go ahead,
No.
Mindy. What you have to say is, I'm
Cutting
sure
each other
more
off, it's
important
fine.
than what I was gonna
No, I
say.
was just saying the goal with the handbook is to have it be something that can last as long as possible, right? I'm not saying that we're not going to need to update pieces of it here and there, but there are going to be policies that are updated year after year. That's the nature of what you do, and the goal is to have it be so that's your decision. But if we distribute it and then you're still approving different policies in May and in November of next year, I mean, the website is never going to perfectly show what is in this handbook, but our goal is to have it accurately portray what we, the information that we want to provide to our employees, that's all.
right,
If I
what
could
I'm-
just- if I
why-
can just interject real quickly, because I didn't finish what I was saying. This is designed to be a living document.
Totally.
But when it is distributed at the first, the links should work, is all I was saying. Okay, so there's still time before, we could approve this tonight, we could accept it tonight. Because what we're accepting, in my mind, is the general structure, the things that are in it, like the types of things that are in it. And it's up to the district then to continue to maintain it and update it. We're not gonna approve every time there's a change. That's not our job. And so the question really comes down to, what are we approving tonight? Are we approving it tonight, I guess is the question.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I would like to make a motion to approve the EPS employee handbook.
I second.
there's a motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Madam Chair,
Yeah,
I'm not sure how we can approve a handbook when we know right away that it's not adhering to Mass General Law.
I'm not convinced that it's not adhering to Mass General Law. I understand what you're saying about those laws, but I also know that Jay's in contact with our attorney, that previous iterations of this have been sort of vetted, and we've, correct me if I'm wrong,
And
but
we
my
didn't, we didn't have
understanding.
one last year.
Okay,
So,
so, all right, so
So
not
you
the
have one.
employee handbook, but I don't know. I feel like fair enough with the with the three that are required by Mass General Law, fair enough, but beyond that, every time we reference something that we have a policy for, I'm okay if the handbook has the spirit of the policy. If it's in direct contradiction, huge problem. If it says the same thing but doesn't link to a policy, I'm comfortable.
Madam Chair,
yep.
two things. One, it directly does not adhere to Mass General Law. I'm not making this up. Motor vehicle idling on school grounds, that's a massive policy. It states it in what needs to be in a handbook. It states it in like it's stated. That's why we had to get that approved. That's why subcommittee worked very hard to get that approved. And it needs to be in the handbook.
Fair enough.
On the other part of this, to use Mrs. Often's phrasing, we shouldn't Frankenstein together a handbook when we have the actual policies and we can do it correctly the first time. So put it together the correct way, as we know it as of today, would be the best way, and then go for it going on. If we put something out forth today that we say, this is personal files, but we have personal records, and we already know that there's an issue, we're just gonna snowball that.
I guess I don't know that there's an issue with the personnel
But I'm just-
files section, just because it doesn't link to or read word for word like the policy.
Madam Chair, can I amend my motion? I think I just would like to accept it tonight with the caveat that the policies that Christie has stated that are mandated by law will be updated. I trust you both that you can get this done before we're not gonna meet again for another 3 weeks. I still stand by my motion, so that was a long motion, but with the edits requested by Christie. That's my motion.
I
you still second
recommit
that?
to my second.
I'm comfortable with that. I think, again, the idea was the general structure and the content insofar as what was required by state law. It's owned by Jay's office and the central office staff. It's not owned by this committee. It's a rubber stamp. That's what we're doing. I support the motion. I think we need to get this. I have one tiny little itty bitty nitpicky thing that I will email you about, but I think it's better than nothing for sure by a long mile.
Thank you.
This is so much better than nothing, Mandy.
Killing it, man.
I think it's
No, I'm,
Mandy, I think it's fantastic. I
really
think you've
well
done
done.
great work. And there's some things we have to fix, just like any new
course.
document. I think you've done great work.
I'm happy to do whatever
Of course.
needs to be
It's a
adjusted.
huge
Absolutely.
undertaking.
Yep.
I love being able to finish my sentences.
Sorry, Amy.
Sometimes I stumble over my words, but the sentiment was there. I think this is excellent. Yes, there are always going to be some changes that are needed. It's going to be a living document. What are the plans in terms of how are you going to make this available to staff?
That's a good question. My initial thought would be to distribute it electronically. And if we determine that any kind of sign off is needed, that would also be done electronically. Which
Sign
is
off?
possible, yes.
Sign off by,
What do you
Just
mean?
on receipt.
Staff.
We would
You've
probably
Received it.
just
Oh.
do that.
Yep.
Like we
Okay.
do that all the time.
Yep.
That's,
so it would not be like on the district website?
yeah, we could put it on there. I don't
Not
know.
opposed to having it on there
Under
either.
staff links, that would make sense.
I mean, most of this stuff is public information anyway.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
I
there's
would
nothing
say all of
that-
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would
think
agree.
it all is.
Okay. Right. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
I would just hope that there's an email summarizing all of your
Yeah, I
feedback.
just sent it to Dr. Cummings.
Perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the GPS staff handbook?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, everybody.
Mrs. Meyer, before we move on, I'd like you to note that for the student handbooks, please refer back to the policy list. I've already noticed that some of those are missing as well.
And when we do share that, I know everybody's really short on time, but when we'll share it weeks ahead of time. If people find things, just email them to us.
Yeah.
That's all. But we appreciate the diligence across the board. and
All right.
Andy does.
Superintendent report. You have anything else?
Yeah, not much. Attended the Promising Practices event at BVT this past Friday. We recognized GMS counselors Tony Kissel and Christina Marazzo. They're going to be here presenting to the school committee on the 10th of December. And so that was great. We'll show photos, et cetera. And then I don't think the kids touched on it, but Christy, Laura, and myself attended the Computer Science Honor Society induction ceremony last week. They inducted 15 new members. They now are at an all-time high of 30. President Sydney Fiskasil and Mrs. Allen both spoke, did a wonderful job. So congratulations to all of them, and that's all I have.
I'd like to pass over, in the interest of time, I'd like to pass over future agenda. I feel like we've beaten that to death.
Fine.
I haven't made any changes to that. We have no minutes. We have a warrant.
Madam Chair. I move that the committee approve warrant 20 in the amount of $340,208.72.
I second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Okay. Policy. My understanding is that this is, with the exception of health education, these are all either second readings or approve as reviewed. Is that correct?
I think we have one other first reading, IJND.
Yeah,
Yep.
IJND.
Yep.
Sorry, my mistake. Can we take the second readings as a single motion?
Happy to do that.
No,
No?
Wait a minute, some of the
no.
book doesn't match.
Yeah, the book
what
doesn't
I
match.
have.
And the book, and the list doesn't match the agenda, like, I mean,
Yeah, so the
it's all
packet,
over.
All right, we'll just go through in order.
so the,
I have the packet up in front of me.
yep, so the packet,
We'll go by the packet.
okay. EHB, Data and Records Retention, second reading. Madam Chair, I move that we accept EHB, Data and Records Retention as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Chair, I move that the committee accept GBEE, Personnel Use of Technology, as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. GBEE. Any discussion? No discussions. We'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that the committee accept IJND, Access to Digital Resources, as a first reading.
That is not in our book, that wasn't in the backup material. It was on the list, but there
There's
was
a,
no
hold
backup.
on, there's a motion.
Wait, which one?
IJND.
Or something
I have IJNDC,
Something,
acceptable use of digital resources.
too many people on this.
This has a slightly different name.
Yep, it's a different policy, there's,
And that policy's already been approved.
yes, it has, so the wrong policy is listed here. So can I pass this one for
Yep.
next time?
Yep.
Thank you. Madam Chair?
Yep.
Oh, I rescind my motion, sorry, I was
Fine.
Madam Chair, I move that the committee accept IHAM-R, Health Education, as a first reading. This is the opt-out.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. So this is new to the committee.
This is a
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I recommend that this is just approve as is. We have it in our manual. It's not new to, it's new to us in that, it's in our, but it's already in our manual. And we, if I recall from the policy workshop, if it's already in the manual, we were just gonna take it as a one-time approval. We didn't need to do 2 reads on it.
I thought if it was brand new, we were gonna do it twice.
It was only gonna be if it was like those, the stuff from the December newsletter where it's not in our manual at all. But I thought that we had said if it's already in the manual, we would just take it as a first,
I
like as
am
an approved.
happy to
yeah.
take it as approve as reviewed.
Same.
So I amend my motion.
Given that this is current practice, I don't have any objection.
Okay, so I amend my motion that we accept IHAM-R, Health Education, and approve as reviewed.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the substance of the policy? Seeing none. I'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move that the committee accept policy JQ, student fees, fines, and charges as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made
wanna-
and seconded.
Sorry, I want to note that last meeting, we noted that we had made some changes to the MASC policy, but we did not include those changes in the packet. So we did this time. The highlighted text is what was removed.
So in the version in the drive, our text is not highlighted.
Yeah, we don't have a.
Can you just
a
summarize real
strike-through.
quickly?
Sure. So if you look at the policy, after the 2 bullet points on charges, there is some language that reads, students who are indigent are exempt from paying fees. However, indigent students are not exempt from charges for lost and damaged books, locks, materials, etc.
That doesn't appear in our version at all.
Okay.
So was it
just
removed or was it
It
added?
was removed.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. All right. Sorry,
Yep.
I misunderstood. I thought you added the paragraph.
No.
Okay, so that's why
No.
it's gone.
There was,
So we need to
okay, there is a packet on the drive, and I apologize.
That's
It
all right.
didn't make it to the book, where
I
the
think-
language was removed.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
additional language was removed as well.
Yep.
There was another paragraph.
I didn't get to
Yeah,
that.
okay, yeah,
Yep.
go ahead,
There is the
Leora.
second paragraph. All student fees and charges, both optional and required, will be listed and described annually in each school's student handbook or in some other written form and distributed to each student. The notice will advise students that fees are to be paid and of the penalties for their failure to pay them. Permissible penalties include the denial of participation in extra class activities and graduation exercises and activities while the student is enrolled in this district. We did remove that because if you look at the next paragraph, it talks about fees carrying over to the coming year, and we just, frankly, don't want to be that punitive.
Madam Chair, though, I feel that it is important that all student fees and charges, both optional and required, are listed and described annually in each student's handbook in some other written form and distributed to each student. I really think that that first sentence should remain.
I just think that how could we possibly contemplate? Sometimes there are fees and charges that we can't even contemplate until an activity happens.
I mean, we're not talking about, like class dues or something like that's in the student handbook.
Right.
But, field trips and stuff,
Right,
that's a
but,
fee that we can't anticipate.
no, you can't anticipate, but you can state that there'll be field trip charges or so, but, and even to your own point of class dues, then put that class dues will be listed. I think that something should be stated as that fees will be listed, that there'll be some sort of fee listing in the handbook.
I don't agree. I think that's overly prescriptive.
That was the subcommittee's thinking.
I agree with that. I mean, there's a lot involved in running 6 different buildings. And, obviously, we're not gonna charge a lot of fees. I feel like this is almost from a bygone era where, districts would nickel and dime for everything. And, we're very fortunate, especially when it comes to things like field trips and other activities that, our PTGs and PTOs, they try to defray those costs as much as possible. But, the course materials are already delineated. I'm thinking about things like, the AP test fees and stuff. I don't think we need to be overly prescriptive in the policy. It says that, this policy, the spirit of it is, we're gonna make sure that kids get the full experience in our district, even if they can't pay. That's, to me, the gist of this policy.
Yes.
And I don't feel the need to list them out or to say they have to be in one particular location or another. So I disagree. Again, when we get overly prescriptive with policy, we don't make it better, we hamstring the process. So I'm a less is more kind of person. But you can ask for it as an amendment and we can vote on it if you want. It's up to you.
Isn't the motion already made to take this as a second vote, as a second reading? You'd have to
There is a
withdraw.
motion
There's
on the
already a motion
table.
on the table.
You can offer an amendment to put that line back in.
I offer an amendment to put that line back in.
Is there a second? There is not. Okay, motion fails. I will ask, and I don't know if this is a nitpicky thing, but when we modify a policy, do we remove the last line? On mine, I'm sorry, my last line says source MASC updated 2021.
We keep that in, and then I will add that we approved it tonight underneath it.
So even though it's not completely MASC policy.
I will
it
say we
still says-
modified it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
I
Amy.
get you.
Thanks for
Yep.
clarifying that. Yep.
Okay.
Because
I
I
just-
probably wouldn't have done that.
Okay,
Yep,
cool.
yep,
Do we need to vote on the original motion?
yep.
We don't vote on the amendment because there was no second, so we
Right,
are.
so
on
now
the
we're on
original
the-
motion.
okay,
We
we're
will
still
vote
on the
yeah,
original
We're gonna
motion.
vote on the
Okay.
original motion.
Great.
We're gonna send you as delegate next year. You understand how these things work. All right. Is there any further discussion on this policy? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 4-1. Okay.
Finally. Madam Chair. I
Yeah.
move that the committee approve policy KDC, community use of digital resources as a second reading.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yep.
could I just speak on policy quickly?
I would prefer you don't, only because
just-
of time. Really,
Okay.
honestly, like, that's what I'm looking at. It's 9:15 and we've got more to go. So I think
I'll
we
just
can,
put it in my member report, I guess.
are we not, so the policy's on the agenda, and correct me if I'm wrong. I have EHAA. We're not dealing with that tonight.
I believe
EHAA.
EHAA was here in error.
Okay. I just want to make sure we take care of whatever's on the
Yep.
agenda that we're not dealing with.
On the agenda, you also have JLC, and that's.
I was getting to
Yep.
that,
Yeah.
yep,
Yep, which
Which
is
is,
not necessary.
okay. All right. All right, thank you very much. Does the policy subcommittee intend to meet in the next 3 weeks? You do?
Yes.
Okay, I just knew with the holidays and everything that
No,
that might be a
we-
tough ask.
We
Okay.
gotta meet, yep.
Okay,
It was, I was just say, we had a very brief time between last
I
week
know.
and this week
Yep.
to get you the policy with the agendas. We did our best. I'm
Yep.
sorry there continue to be these kind of administration errors.
well, this is why we don't meet
We're
every
really-
week.
We're
Yep.
really trying really hard, and I do not like meeting every week.
I don't either.
I've missed two kid things tonight. for
Yeah.
Very
this.
sorry.
But Thanksgiving, darn it.
No, I didn't think we wanted to meet the week of Thanksgiving,
No,
so.
thank you
thank
for
you.
that.
There you go. All right, member reports. Anybody have a member report?
I can guess one person who might.
do you have a member?
I do not, I did nothing this week.
That's not true.
That really made me.
It's true. It's not true.
Love you, Rebecca.
I went to the Comp Sci Honor Society induction with Mrs. Often was there and Dr. Cummings was there. I met with Jen Mannon this week to ask her more questions after her presentation from last week. And that's all that I did this week. 2 days.
I do not have a report for tonight.
Wow.
Why are you looking at me so
I don't know.
shocked?
I have a report.
It's been a week.
Laura, do you have a report first?
I think everyone knows I went to the computer science.
Exciting.
I'll say it again, though. I will say, 20 minutes that ceremony was. If all ceremonies could be that,
Right.
I
Wow.
would,
Oh.
I think the world should listen. It was lovely, and those
Exciting.
students are amazing, but
Mrs. Often, it wasn't lovely for the couple that walked in 20 late, and she was screaming at her husband, "This is your fault that we missed it."
That's
I
great.
know that feeling, and I.
He was like, "Who would have guessed it was a 10-minute ceremony?"
Do it again.
Really sad.
Do it again.
I take it back, it should be hours
It should be ours. So that poor woman, that poor husband, honestly,
Aw.
The poor kid who they were probably coming
he
to
didn't
see.
notice, but the parent.
It's kind of funny.
I have a couple things. I appreciate Leora chairing last week. I was not well, so I missed everybody's MASC updates, and I haven't finished watching the meeting yet, but I'll give my MASC update. I went out to the conference on Friday, and I served as delegate. We approved all of the resolutions, including the 11 that were expiring. We did those as a consent agenda, go consent agenda. It was interesting, it was fun, I enjoyed it, but I love that parliamentary procedure stuff, probably more than anybody in this room. The only contribution that I had was that I called a point of order when the chair was confused about what motion we were on, and I helped her fix that, so she was very appreciative after the fact. it was exciting and fun. There, I said that already. I just want to reiterate the fall play, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I hope to see everybody there. Tickets are $10 for adults, $5 for students. It's a brand new play, which is very exciting for Grafton to be among the first schools to perform it. You should come all 3 nights because it's a different ending every night, as our students said. And I want to call out our man behind the camera, Ben. Come on out.
Uh-oh.
Hurry up.
Hurry up.
No, I told him I was going to do this. I'm not going to, yeah. Come have a seat for a second, Ben. Ben Clements is a senior at Grafton High School, and he has been working for GCTV and recording all of our meetings. And Friday night, when I was not feeling well and I could not go to the football game, Ben saved my life. I got to watch the Grafton football team absolutely annihilate Marblehead Magicians. And he not only recorded the game, he provided the play-by-play calling, which was something I had not experienced for our high school program, and I thought it was so great. He did such a great job, and so I just wanted to call attention because that's not something you're paid for. You're just doing it because, and you want to do that as a career, maybe, you said?
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking to go to college for sports journalism, so it's a great
That's
way.
fantastic. Well, you're well on your way. You did a great job.
Thank
It
you
was
so
really
much.
great.
I appreciate that. a lot.
And you gave a shout out to your crew, which is very important. I like to think you learned that from us, to always
Yes.
thank everybody around you that makes
Of
you
course.
better.
Yeah.
Great job, Ben. Thank you. And I'll
Appreciate
get
it.
back
Thanks
to
so
work.
much.
Because we got to sign off soon. But yeah, I really did appreciate that. Congratulations to the Grafton football team. They have been undefeated all season. And I would just like to say that they did not win because the Marblehead team was unable to practice due to a teacher's strike. They won because they're just better. Correspondence, there is none. We do have a very quick executive session. I forgot to ask you to bring that up.
I'm on it.
Very quick. And if there's no other business that can come before the committee at this time, I declare the meeting adjourned. Good night, Grafton.
Madam Chair.
What?
We need to make a motion to go into executive session, which I did pull up.
I apologize. Ben, are we still on? We are. Great entertainment. Thank you, Laura. Go ahead and make that motion.
I love a good motion. As you know, Madam Chair, I move to make a motion to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct, I'm so sorry, to conduct strategy sessions, to conduct collective bargaining, contract negotiations with non-union personnel, accordance to open meeting law GLC 30A 21.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. We will go into executive session. We will return to regular session for me to adjourn us again. Good night, Grafton.
We need a roll call vote.
We do.
We're all on camera.
We need a roll call vote for
To go
all
into
executive
executive
sessions,
sessions.
Madam Chair.
All right. Roll call vote. All those in favor? Rebecca.
Rebecca Soko, aye.
Christy Kiblezinski, aye.
Leora Brahm, aye.
Amy Mar, aye.
Laura Often, aye.
All right. We're really done. I promise.
Thank you.
You're done.
Good night.